Today, you people are no longer maggots. Today, you are Marines. You're part of a brotherhood.
Welcome to another edition of Math, not in silly hats. One, because this hat isn't silly, it's dignified. And two, it's indoors, so I won't be wearing this hat. I'd like to dedicate this episode of Math in Silly Hats to all the mothers out there, since, ever since I was a teenager, I've always wanted to teach my mom a lesson. Let's get started. So today we're going to be dealing with literal inequalities, isolating a variable. We're going to be given a complicated inequality and asked to solve for a single variable. Now, unfortunately, just like last topic, I will not be able to give you a series of steps to always do every time because each of these inequalities is going to be unique and different. But I can give you some general tips to make sure that you can attack this as strategically as possible. The first is to identify the variable to be isolated. This will help us keep everything straight. Here, we're supposed to solve for just u. So I'm going to highlight, underline, circle, put an arrow on, whatever I need to do to remind myself that I just need to get this u by itself on one side of the inequality, and then everything else on the other side, and I'll be done. Next, we're going to use opposite operations to isolate that variable. Of course, those opposite operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and square root and squaring a term. Now, there's a few wrinkles that can come up while we're doing those opposite operations. If we divide or multiply by a negative, the inequality sign will flip. So if we had greater than, it'll become less than. Less than or equal to becomes greater than or equal to, etc. Now, if we take the square root, we're going to have to account for the fact that our answer could be both positive or negative. For example, the square root of 9, we know, could be 3, because 3 times 3 is 9. However, the square root of 9 could also be negative 3, because negative 3 times negative 3, negative times a negative is a positive 9. So you're going to have to be careful with the square roots as well as multiplying or dividing by negatives when we're dealing with inequalities. Let's attack this problem now. Here we're asked to solve for u. Our first step is going to be to identify that variable of interest. We're solving for u, so I'm going to make sure I highlight the fact that u is my variable of interest. I'm just trying to get u by itself and everything else over to this side. Next, I'm going to perform some opposite operations to try to simplify this mess. So, I see that on the right side, u is being multiplied by 9 and divided by negative 3 little m squared big M. So one thing I can do right off the bat is recognize that there's a factor of 3 in both the numerator and denominator. So I can rewrite this as 3 times 3u over 3 times negative m squared big M. And we can see there we have the same factor in the numerator and denominator. So let's simplify this first. We have o on the left over negative little m is greater than 3u now divided by negative little m squared big M. Now, 3u is being divided by negative little m squared big M. So, though this looks intimidating, it's just division by one term. We can cancel that with the opposite operation, multiplication. So let's do that. I'm going to multiply everything by the denominator, negative m squared little m big M. On the left, I'm going to have big M times O, and I'm going to arrange these because I see that, again, I'm going to have common terms in both the numerator and denominator, times negative m squared over negative m. Now, before I write this inequality sign, I'm going to realize that I just multiplied by a negative, so I need to flip my inequality sign. When I multiply by a negative and an inequality, I flip my inequality sign. So instead of greater than, we're going to write less than. on the right side, I have the 3u. Remember, u is my variable of interest, so I'm trying to solve for u. And again, I'm noticing that both of these are going to appear in both the numerator and denominator and cancel. Of course, that was my intention on the right. So I had negative m squared, little m squared, big M, and I multiply by negative little m squared, big M. And notice, because these are both in the numerator and denominator, they'll cancel. On the right side, I can clean things up a bit. I see a negative symbol in both the numerator and denominator. A negative divided by a negative will be a positive. And I had m squared in the numerator, m in the denominator. This is really just m times m. So I can cancel both the negative signs as well as one incidence of little m in the numerator. So I end up with m o little m less than love you, Mom. And then finally, because we're actually solving for u, 3 is multiplying my u. I'm going to cancel that with division. I'm going to divide everything by 3. And I'll end up with less than u. My final solution is u is greater than m over 3. But I think we all know the point of this. Hope you enjoyed this and that you have a happy Mother's Day. Bye-bye!